Hello and welcome to this edition of Takeaway Tuesday. Today I'm very excited to talk to you about conducting an effective narrative practice. One comment that I often hear from interviewers is that narrative practice feels very similar to rapport building, and it should. It's a continuation of the development of the relationship that you began with the child at the beginning of the interview. But narrative practice does have a different purpose. It is actually your opportunity for teaching. It's your teaching moment in the interview where you're teaching the child to give you specific episodic details about a particular event. Now, research does demonstrate that if we give the child the opportunity to recall and fully describe an event, give us the episodic details about a specific event, then later in the interview, if they should make a disclosure in the substantive phase, that they will give us a greater number of forensically relevant details. Now, when we talk about the event, it needs to be fairly recent, it needs to be personally meaningful to the child, and it also needs to be hopefully positive or at least neutral. Versus if we ask a child about what happens every day or what's an everyday occurrence, that's not going to be a very effective narrative practice. So again, a recent event, personally meaningful and positive or at least neutral when we're talking with these children. There are numerous benefits to both the child and the interviewer when we conduct an effective narrative practice. The child has the opportunity to recall an event from memory and give us a narrative and specific details about the event. It gives them more practice in listening to and answering open-ended questions, and it also, again, is a continuation of that rapport. So we're hoping to get the child even more comfortable with us and the whole interviewing process. As interviewers, we're looking at how well that child narrates to those open-ended questions, what prompts or questions might be most effective for this child. We're also looking at the child's ability to give us a narrative. Is it organized or disorganized? Do they need help with sequencing? And so we're just trying to determine what are the best questions to ask while getting specific details about an event. Now, there's no specific time frame for narrative practice. It's just going to depend on the child and how comfortable they are in the process. What you want to be asking yourself is, has the child demonstrated sufficiently to you that they can go back into memory, pull up a specific time, and then give you all the details about that time? And are they comfortable? If they're still displaying some reluctance or reticence, then you might need to spend more time in narrative practice. You could even talk not just about one event, but about two events. But it's all going to depend on where that child is and what their comfort level is. The biggest question that I get around narrative practice is, how do I choose a topic, or what should I ask the child about? And what NCAC recommends is that you draw from whatever the child has talked to you about in the rapport building stage of the interview. So for an example, if the child talks to you about maybe in rapport building, they talk to you about playing basketball on a travel team. So what you could do is you could come in and say, well, earlier when we first started talking, you were telling me about playing basketball on a travel team. I want you to think about one time that you went out of town for your basketball and talk to me about that trip from beginning to end. And what you're doing is you're just wanting that child to give you as much narrative as they possibly can about that event. You could come back and ask, what helps you remember this one trip versus other trips that you have taken? Because you do want to make sure that you're getting episodic information about one particular trip versus what they normally do when they travel out of town. Once you've gotten that narrative, and folks, you're going to be continuing to ask questions such as, well, what happened next, or tell me more, and then what happened? Because we're wanting that child to get practice in giving us good narrative and giving us the details. Now, what will happen is children are still unaccustomed to giving us the types of details that we need in a forensic interview. So you may have to come back with what we call depth questions. So it could be, an example would be, you said that when you went on this last trip that you stayed at a Holiday Inn. Tell me all about the room where you stayed. What describe the room or what was in the room. So you're getting more specific details. Now, once you've done that and there's still maybe some missing information, this is when you would come back with your WH questions. The who, the what, the where, the how, and the when, if that information has not been gathered. You can also ask about the senses, anything to do with sensory information, also maybe exploring how a child was thinking or feeling during the event. In other words, we want the totality and as much information as that child can tell us about this particular moment in time. Folks, this is your teaching moment in the forensic interview, where you're teaching the child to recall an event and give you specific episodic details about that particular event. Don't forget to also check out the NCAC Virtual Training Center, where we have webinars and trainings. Also look to Calio. There's a lot of information there. There's some bibliographies, some research to practice pieces. We encourage you to go there, find out more information. And as always, if you have any thoughts or comments or questions, please email or give me a call. Thanks for listening, and we'll see you next month.